So what I want to talk today, and maybe we can talk about it, you might have noticed that yesterday there was a lot going on around kings. There's anybody who didn't notice yesterday there was a lot going on around kings, right? Yeah, so that got me thinking about the Buddha Dharma and kings, and what did the Buddha say about kings? Because in his time, there were kings, even though actually there were republics in those days too, small, but there were most of the principalities were ruled by kings, and then there were emperors, and so the Buddha, in the course of his life, had to deal with kings and differing kings, and kings that were going to war, right? Because again, he and his community wandered about. They didn't have a fixed abode, so they wandered about in what's called northern India. And again, there were a lot of small principalities, little kingdoms that were, doing all the usual things that kingdom do, which is what? What? Make war on each other. Right. Keep things interesting. Let's go make war. So anyhow, there are, and I'm also thinking about this not just because of yesterday, but I think last Sunday or Monday was Thich Nhat Hanh's birthday, right? And somewhere he'd be in the 90s now if he was still alive, and he was somebody who was very concerned about society, right? And his Buddhism, which really wasn't, it came out of a whole movement in Vietnam that goes back into the 30s, especially among younger parts of the Buddhist community there, monastics. This whole movement of engaged Buddhism, you've heard that term, we talk about it. And engaged Buddhism, even though here in America it's come to mean things like socially engaged Buddhism or socially active Buddhism, that's not really what engaged Buddhism means. Engaged Buddhism, as Thai developed it, engaged Buddhism meant a Buddhism that's engaged in life, right? And he opposed that to the traditional Buddhism of Vietnam that he grew up into and was part of, which was what he called temple Buddhism, right? Temple Buddhism means, how do I practice Buddhism? I go to the temple. And when I go to the temple, I make offerings, I pray, I get to, talk to the monks and nuns. In the same way, most people, if you ask people, and in our culture, how do you practice your religion? They would say what? What? I go to church, or I go to temple, or I go to mosque, right? And so Thich Nhat Hanh said, no. He didn't say that was bad, but he said the practice of Buddhism is, goes on in life. And so your Buddhist practice has to be practiced, in the family, in relationships, in education, in economics, in the neighborhood, in society, that basically the principles and the teachings of Buddhism had to be brought into and engaged in society. So when we talk about engaged Buddhism, it means an engaged Buddhism that's engaged in life. It's not it's not engaged in ritual. It's not engaged in kind of religious kind of formalities. It's not just found in one place. It's found in life. Any questions about that? You all know that already, right? So, and if you looked at Thai's output, Thich Nhat Hanh's output, even the ones that translated into English, not even the ones that he's written in Vietnamese, there are over 100 books. He's written over 100 books. And if you look at those 100 books, you'll see they cover everything. everything in life. I mean, there's a lot of books about, Buddhist. I mean, he was a scholar and a great Buddhist intellect, poet. But so he wrote lots of things about Buddhism, but he wrote lots of things about what? Anybody ever read his books? He writes about what? Relationships. Lots about relationships and love, and what else does he write about? Suffering and what? Being at peace for everyone. But he writes about families, and he writes about communication, and he writes about power, and he writes about education, and he writes about, right? All kinds of matters that matter to human beings who are engaged in life. Right? So it's important to understand that, that while we are doing, and like when we come here on Sunday or when we retreat or, mindfulness meditation, while we do a lot of inner work to facilitate our own transformation of heart and mind, we also very much want to manifest that in life. Engage Buddhism. All right? Now, I want to talk a little bit about Thai, but I wanted to go back to the Buddha to show that, this idea that a Buddhist would be engaged in life. But many people think Buddhism is sort of just kind of a meditative kind of discipline that you do alone, that you do on the cushion, you do in retreat centers, but it really doesn't have any thing to say about society. Well, that's not true, of course. And so in the Buddha's own time, and again, remember he as I said earlier, he and his community kind of wandered around northern India, visiting, being available to teach for nearly 50 years. And because of the nature of that society, where spiritual practitioners, hermits, were often deeply respected by all social classes, he was often consulted by, brought to the palace, or there would actually the kings or the queens, or a lot of the stories it's the queen who goes visit the Buddha and gets her husband, the king, and says, "You got to come here, this guy." Sort of, things haven't changed much. So there's lots of stories like that. So again, there are lots of, in the sutras and the various kinds of teachings, there are lots of, we find lots of things that the Buddha, the kind of advice he gave. He gave lots of advice to householders, but this is like advice he would give to kings about how to rule, right? And to rule in the context of what he called his Dharma. And then there is something which is a compilation. It's called the 10 Duties of a Righteous Ruler, Dasaraja Dhamma. And so this is what I wanted to share with you, because it really is, while it was meant for the rulers, do we have rulers? What? Do we have rulers in our society, those who rule us? Of course we do. Even though we are a democracy, we elect our rulers, right? But they still rule us. Is that true? And so there are all different forms of government in this world, but all of them involve rulers. And we have rulers not only at the national level, we have rulers at the state level, and we have rulers at the city level and the county level, right? People who are making the rules, enforcing the rules, right? Interpreting the rules of life. Is that true? So, even though we may not, at least in this country, have a king or a queen, we still have rulers. And this is, so I think this is very important, because we think about our rulers and we vote for our rulers based on what? For most people. Their views. Is that true? Their views. Yeah, It's very interesting. We don't... Okay, let's try this. Let's say you're young and you want to find a partner. Anybody ever been in that place? They're young, they want to kind of find their partner, their life partner. Anybody ever think that way? Right? And when you're young, you think, yeah, I want to find a partner who shares my views, who likes doing the things I do, right? Right? Who likes to what? Likes the outdoors, or likes to ski, or likes boating, or likes, right? Or likes or likes the same kind of music I like, or likes to go out dancing, or you see, right? We think about all those things. And what else want me to think about? What? See, we think about all their things they do. And we're looking for somebody to do things with, right? And we want somebody where our what we like to do is in alignment. Is that true? Anybody ever been there? Okay. And then over time, you might find that person where you share a lot of interests and all that, and share a lot of views. And then over the years, what do you find? Does that work? Why doesn't it work? What did we miss? Come on. What? What did we miss?
Things change.
Well, things change, and you're right, things change, but what did we miss? What did you begin to understand as you developed a relationship? What hadn't you been looking at? Values. You get it? Remember? Yeah, I like having fun with this person, and we do lots of great things, but over time you get to know what? Come on, you've all been there. What? What? They have issues, and they may have different values than I do. They're not very kind. They're not very generous. They're not very compassionate. They're not very patient. They're not very understanding. Right? Anybody ever run into that? What? Yeah, thank you. All right, thank you, Jose, right? So even though in the beginning we were looking for people who shared our views, over time that broke down because we realized, that whole quality of the kind of person they are, right? I forgot to attend to that. Is that true? Okay. Now, is it easy? No, why isn't it easy? Because people have a way of presenting themselves, which can often be what? Well, or deceiving, but it's because what? It's because over time you realize what? You see deeper. They're not as they appeared. Right? There was more going on with them. They had issues. Right? They had issues, as Raven said. And when you first met them, they didn't, the first date, they didn't go, well, let me tell you about all my deep-seated issues. Right? Is that true? It took you time to learn about all their issues. And it took time for them to learn all about your issues. Okay. So I think that's important. Because I think when we listen to the 10 duties of a righteous ruler, the Buddha is talking about who they are. Right. He's not getting into politics, he's not getting into views, he's not getting into stands, right? Which is where we start in our social views. But who is this person? What kind of human being is he? Right? How do they approach ruling? Does that make sense? This is the most important thing. And whether we're talking about rulers or we're talking about leaders, and when you open it up to leaders, right? I mean, many of us and many people can be leaders. Leaders at work, leaders in their family, leaders on a sports team, leaders in Girl Scouts. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, leader is, to be a leader is, you can show up in many different, we have leaders in our community, right? People who lead us, right? And the Buddha was very concerned in his teaching because he felt that human beings like us, we have all kinds of tendencies, right? We have noble ones and we have ignoble ones. We have virtuous tendencies and less than virtuous tendencies. Is that true? And that's the nature of all people. So he really felt that the rulers, or in other words, those who were leading, they had a major responsibility for the quality of society. And it's not as if that all the beings in the society don't have something to do with that, but it's kind of the leaders who are kind of setting the tone, right? And so he spent a lot of time, when he could, counseling kings about how to be leaders, what their values should be. Right? So, because again, he understood clearly that to have a healthy society, the rulers had to be healthy. He even felt that for society really to flourish, it needed healthy rulers who could nurture those qualities of flourishing in the people. Right? Because, as you know, human beings are so easily swayed, aren't they, by what their leaders are saying. And their leaders can be nurturing wholesome, and their leaders can be nurturing unwholesome. Is that true? Yeah. So, and I'm not talking about political views. Right? I'm saying something bigger than that. And something that it seems in our national discourse elections we don't attend to at all, do we? All we care about is what? They're a Democrat, I'll vote for them. They're a Republican, I'll vote for them. They take their stand is this, I'll vote for them. Their stand is not this, I won't vote for them. No, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it's very short term. And it's not looking at the bigger picture of what's going on. So let's take a look at these qualities, the 10 duties of a righteous ruler. And again, please think about them not only in terms of our rulers. And again, I would say our rulers are, not just the president, et cetera, it's all the people in Congress, it's all, it's our governors and our mayors and our state representatives. These are, right, in a general way, these are our rulers. Is that true? Okay. Anybody disagree with anything I've said so far? Online, they can just chat it in. Anybody? Okay. Yeah. So shall we get into it, or we're good? Let's do it. Stop beating around the bush, Fred. Get. What are these 10, right? So, the first duty of a ruler, of a righteous ruler, is generosity. To have a generous spirit. To not be selfish. To want to share the wealth of society, the wealth of the kingdom, with those in need. Right? A willingness. I'm just reading from the traditional commentary. A willingness to give away wealth, possessions, and resources for the benefit of and welfare of others. So that's the first quality. Right? There's this sense of generosity, which is not just doling it out, but a generous spirit doesn't hold on, is not miserly. It sees that all the wealth of the kingdom, we need to use it for the benefit of the kingdom and the people of the kingdom. Right? It's a generous, it's not particular. So, and again, if I asked you, just in terms of human beings, do you admire generous people or do you admire misers? Do you admire people who only dole it out to only the few that they like, or to those who are very generous and help people across the board, right? Who give of themselves freely, their qualities, their competencies, their abilities, in a generous way. Right? Generosity is a wonderful quality. Second one is moral character. Right? Does the leader observe qualities of societal ethics, agreed upon ethics, and they're an example to the people of how to lead an ethical life? Right? Do they demonstrate in their own life a commitment to ethics, and morality involve self-restraint, right? I restrain myself from doing things that are unethical. And when one conducts oneself in an ethical way, there tends to be greater harmony, greater order in that person's mind and order, and it radiates into society. It sets the example. Now, do we examine the moral character and the quality of generosity in our rulers? How do you even find out? Right, their actions and their words. But how do we find out even about their actions and their words? Through the news. Yeah, I mean, I'm saying it's not so easy, is it? Like we do, when we live with somebody or we work with somebody and we get to be with them on an ongoing basis. A lot of our so-called rulers are very distant from us. We don't live with them. We don't know them, and we hear about them through the news, which means there's somebody who's interpreting this and having to choose what to share and what not to share, and so, it doesn't mean it can't be found out but to really look, what is the ethical qualities of how this person conducts their life. Right? I mean, if you know how they conduct their life in relationship to just their ordinary, how have they conducted their life? If they've been in business, how have they conducted their business? If they've been in the social sphere, the legal sphere, how do they conduct it? Has there been generosity in the way they lived? Has there been ethical conduct in the way they've interacted with others? The third quality is self-sacrifice. In other words, a good ruler is willing to give up their own personal comfort to be of benefit to others. They're willing to sacrifice their own personal interests. Has anybody ever been in that situation? We're in leadership. You have to give up kind of your way of doing things, or your way of wanting things how to be, or your comfort, or because you're what? It's better for the whole, right? Many of us, if you've been a parent, or if you've been a child who's the caretaker of parents, if you've been a caretaker of anybody, at a certain point you have to what? You're going to have to deal with what? Self-sacrifice, right? Because you're going to have to give up your own way of doing things, your own interests, your way how you want to think, your own time, your own space. Why? To benefit the other person, right? So that quality of self-sacrifice is also a quality that has to be, the leader has to be willing to give up enough of itself that it can be open to others and work for others and nurture others, The next one is honesty, right? Sincerity, acting with integrity, not acting with deception. Straightforward in one's decision-making, courageous to discharge their duties, entrusted to them without fear or favor. It is believed that while upholding the public interest, a teacher or leader should align themselves with the ethics, the highest ethics and moralities. Anything here that doesn't sound good to you? What? No. Next one is gentleness. They're even. They have a genial temperament. They're gentle, they're kind, right? They're friendly, they're benevolent, right? Metta, right? Wouldn't we expect that our leaders would be, kind to everyone, kind at least to all their people in their country, all the people they rule, to be kind to them, to be fair with them, to care about their well-being? Self-control, self-control. And austerity in habits, shunning luxury, sensual indulgence, simplicity, not needing luxury, contentment. A good leader should be content. Set an example. Don't need all this, don't need all that, don't have to indulge myself, don't have to always be shopping and needing and more beautiful and more luxury and more this, right? What kind of example is that? Especially when most of the people don't have that. Right? What kind of example are you setting? Right? Non-anger. Think about the political discourse today. Right? In our own state, in our country. The leader doesn't bear grudges or hatred toward anyone. Is free of hatred, ill will, enmity. Yeah. Free of anger, resentment. Control their anger. Has a compassionate attitude toward everyone. Just close your eyes. Is there any, so far, this is 7 out of 10. And those at home too, is there anybody that you're aware of in the political world today, among our rulers, local, state, who you really feel so far we could say yes, 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 yes to? Well, we won't say it out loud because there may be somebody who disagrees, but Yeah, I mean, can you think of one? Can you think of one? How many people can think of one? Well, just be patient. Be patient. So, how many people can think of one? How many people can't think of one? Okay. So it's kind of even. So for those who couldn't think of one, you're eliminated now. Of those who thought of one, how many think of two? How many think of three? How many think of four? Five? Eleanor, you've been alive for 80-something years, and what? And you've known a lot of them, and you can only say five that really stand out. Okay, but maybe more. Yeah, all right. Okay, your memory's poor. But, I mean, isn't that telling? And Henny, I know, and if I said, and again, I mean, there are lots of people out there, right? If you look at all the national and local and state, I mean, we have lots of people, And if I said, can you think of all the ones who do not epitomize this? Who don't epitomize this kind of, kind of awakened, very humanistic kind of leader? Can anybody think of anybody who doesn't? Can anybody think of more than one? Yes. More than 10? More than 20? Yeah, I mean, do you get it? I mean, this is very telling. So the last three are nonviolence, somebody who supports peace, does their best to avoid war, does their best to avoid the destruction of life, avoiding harm or violence toward any being, cultivates compassion for all beings, patience, tolerates hardships, tolerates insults, equanimity, doesn't lose their temper, forbearance, tolerance, this is kshanti, and non-opposition, respects the will of the people, respects the needs of the people, right? That is not opposed or does not obstruct the will of the people, the betterment of the people. Does not choose one sector of society over another sector of society, right? Is always wanting to support and nurture, right? The well-being of the whole and everyone. So what do you think? What's the problem in our society? What's the problem with our political system? Greed. Well, it's greed, but greed's just the quality. We're not talking about greed here, are we? That's not a quality of good rulers, is it? What? Lack of values. Greed. Ignorance. Yeah, well, people who don't work those values, don't have those values, often know how to manipulate the system quite well to their own benefit, So this, anything online, anybody chatting in, or Brian?
Yes, Misty says, too much self, too much identification with separateness. Mm-hmm. And Bruce says, question regarding our array of leaders. We've tried to create a for us, by us process that seems like a brutal selection process that races to the bottom. How can we elect leaders when the electorate itself is us with our impulses and faults?
Yeah, well, we're going to get there. That's part two. But again, I think it's very important, and one reason I'm sharing this, this, obviously when you listen to this list, it and you hold up a mirror, to our current political environment and our political leadership, we cannot help but notice in the overwhelming cases, we do not live in a world where there are noble leaders who really touch the best in human beings and bring out the best in human beings and want to nurture the best in human beings. Is that true? But I'm also sharing this to say many of us in our smallest little universes, we have leadership. We may have leadership. And we can ask ourselves, do I manifest these qualities in my group, in my community, in my neighborhood, in my family? Right? Am I this kind of leader? So this is, Max is a teacher of second graders. Yeah, I mean, Max, you're a leader of that classroom, right? And your principal is the leader of the school. And so again, when we think about these qualities, even though they're meant for kings, we can also think about how do I manifest in my universe, right? Right? Jose, he has a veterinarian practice. People work for, again, you're a leader, right? And again, how do I show up? So I think this could be, I'm just using them as examples, but, Brett over here, he's a supervisor, and you run, again, you're a leader. And again, so, and many of you are. So I'm just using that as an example. So it is an interactive process. Society is an interactive process. So we have all of us. Let's just take America, US of A. How many millions of people are there in America? 300 million? 350 million people. How many of those are adults? Can vote over 18? What? 70%, so it's a lot of people. So, all human beings have wholesome and unwholesome qualities in their mind. Right? All human beings have qualities of what we just mentioned. Right? Maybe they're not leaders, but they have qualities. And they have their opposites. Right? They have their capacity for self-control, and then they have their capacity to lose self-control. They have their capacity not to do harm, and then they have the capacity to do harm. They have their capacity to be patient and enduring and steadfast, and they have their capacity for being impatient and irritated, right? They have their capacity to go along with things, and they have a capacity to try to get everything to go along their way, right? So, they're honest, they're dishonest, they're gentle, they're aggressive. They sacrifice themselves, they only think of themselves. They have moral character, they're immoral. You know what I'm saying? They're generous, they're miserly. So, do all of us know this mix of qualities within ourselves? Right? Yeah. So that's one thing to acknowledge. We can push it all out there and blame and put down all our leaders for their failures without noticing that we have many of the same within us. And the one thing, of course, is that we can take care of them ourselves to the best of our ability. So, it doesn't really, if we have the same qualities in us and we're letting them run rampant, it's harder for us to accuse our leaders of the same qualities. So it behooves us to hold ourselves to the same standards, and the one thing that we're capable of is we may not be able to change them, but we can change ourselves. So we don't have to wait to become this kind of person. Is that clear? So that's That's our responsibility, and yet, with the 100, 200 million people, adults or whatever, the example of their rulers, the way the rulers are conducting themselves, the way the rulers are treating each other, and the way the rulers are treating the people, is also affecting that mix of wholesome and unwholesome. Is that clear? It's interactive. So in a certain sense, just like in a very healthy body, physical body, there's less chance of malignancy taking hold if the person is healthy. If the person is very unhealthy, very compromised immune system, et cetera, there's a much better chance that some kind of disease entity will take root more easily. Is that clear? So it is much harder for an unhealthy ruler to have a home if the cultural body of the country is much more healthy and is living according to these 10 values, right? Because if the most of the Americans were living according to these values and somebody showed up who was not living them, how far would they get? They wouldn't get far at all. So we could only understand that somebody who doesn't live according to this, or somebody who lives in opposition to this, the only way they can move is if most people, what? Are not put off by this. So, in terms of the question, well, how about, it's interactive. They both affect each other. The quality of the society affects who we choose as leaders, and the quality of the leadership affects how we are as people. It is interactive. It's not one or the other, right? Which means that change can come from both sides. If you have a leader who is moral and just and does this, that will affect the population, right? Because it'll bring out qualities, it'll nurture qualities that are wholesome, and it won't be nurturing the unwholesome. If you have a leader who nurtures the unwholesome will what? Grow. If you have a leader who's nurturing the wholesome will grow, and the unwholesome will not grow as much. It may still be there, but it won't be nurtured. So leadership is very important. But again, like you said, the quality of the society is very important too. I found something that Thich Nhat Hanh wrote about leadership. He approached it in a different way, but I wanted to, read the Buddha's first. So he has 3 virtues of a true leader, and he says the first virtue is the virtue of cutting off. So he says you cut off your anger, you cut off your craving, you cut off your ignorance, you let go. You have to have that degree of self-mastery. So, when I read this, it reminded me of when you, maybe others know this in your own professions, but when you train as a clinician, you learn something called professional self. Everybody familiar with this term? Professional self? Maybe not. It means, let's say you're training to be a therapist, right? A clinician. When you go into that room and you interact with your client, you're not interacting with them as Fred. That's my personal self, right? You're interacting with them in your professional self, which means what? It's very clear who you are and what your role is. Your role is what? Well, to help them, right? They're there It's not a personal interaction. They're not there for friendship, right? They're not there when they tell you, their problems. You say, well, let me tell you about my problems, right? You see what I'm saying? You'd be going, what? Hold on, there's something wrong with this transaction. Okay, because professional self, right? You're very clear when you're entering that universe of your profession that you have a way of acting. You also have an ethical code, right? You have an ethical code about how to interact, right? You have boundaries, that you have boundaries. That relationship has boundaries because it's a what? It's a professional relationship, right? So you leave your personal stuff at the door, right? Now, Bill, you at one time was a policeman. You put on a uniform, maybe? You did. Now, when you put on that uniform, I would say, and you were now officer, I don't know, whatever, you know what I mean? You had to leave behind your personal Bill, right? Because you were playing a role. Society was giving you a role to play, right? And again, your own personal ethics and values and, you would bring that to it, right? But yet, it was in the context of that role. Is that clear? And that's good to know that, right? We have medical people in the hall, right? It's the same way. We right? So, our rulers should know that when they take on the mantle of president, vice president, congressperson, senator, mayor, they're taking on a what? A professional role. And they have a duty what? What is their duty? To serve. All the people, right? Right? They're governor of all of Florida, right? All Floridians. You're mayor of all of Tampa, which includes all the people of Tampa. You see, right? And so when you have some kind of ethical basis, then the way you proceed, you don't proceed with your own personal. You might have been very, before? Before you got elected, you might have been very what? Partisan. But once you're elected and you take your oath, the oath is to what? To serve all the people. Again, maybe I'm just talking nonsense, but you know what I'm saying? That's what it means historically, right? So this is not just like we're making this stuff up. This is what makes a functional world. But what, political world, social world, but it comes down to what we're talking about here. Right? A certain sense of responsibility and knowing about what are the qualities when somebody takes on the responsibility of being the ruler, so to speak. That's just the term they use here, of a governmental entity. Yeah, so Thich Nhat Hanh said, they have to be virtuous and cut off all that nonsense. They have to have the virtue of loving, and they have to have the virtue of insight, which is sort of a kind of a restatement in a different way of what the Buddha was saying, right? And so what does this have to do with what's going on today? Any idea what's going on? See, where's the problem, you see? One of the wonderful things about the Buddhist way of looking at things is its big picture. It's like not small picture, like what's the problem today? What's the problem right now? How do I fix it? That's like going from one to another. But like big picture, what's going on here? Where's the problem? You see? And where's the problem? But why is there corruption? And why is there self-serving? These are human qualities. Is there anybody here who's not self-serving? Raise your hand. Is anybody here who's not self-serving, have never been self-serving their whole life? Well, is there anybody here who's never been self-serving to the detriment of another human being and can say, that's me? Yeah, no, we all have. We all have. And we have to acknowledge that these are human failings. Right? And the only thing is that people who have more power have more ability to act out on their human failings. Most of us, we have to do it just only maybe one other person or something. We can't really do it big time. But people who have access to power can take their human failings and they can just magnify them. Right. So that's why we have a great teacher like Thich Nhat Hanh or the Buddha. While they would give this kind of advice to the king, this kind of encouragement to the king, basically what he would do with the king would teach him the Dharma, or teach his wife the Dharma, or his prince the Dharma, so they could get it to the father. Because it's only by people transforming and freeing themselves of these base qualities that don't serve them in their own being, in their own relationships, in their own work, in their own, So the inner transformation of our society is ultimately the answer. It doesn't mean that efforts aren't made at a societal level, political level, whatever kind of leverage we have, to introduce values and support people who have values, right? Entering that world. But we understand that ultimately it will not change unless human beings change. Now, how do human beings have to change? Take a guess. How do human beings need to change? If we want a world in which, let's say, these 10 virtues are pervasive and omnipresent, where we are producing leaders who have these kinds of values, we're supporting leaders who have these kind of values, then we what? What? We have to embody them. We have to embody them. Self-awareness. And so where are we going to learn how to embody them? Because now we don't have a clue. Well, in life, but where are we going to learn? Well, yeah. So this is why Thich Nhat Hanh, with his great social vision, spent most of his life nurturing and supporting Sangha communities, right? Because he felt strongly that a different way of being, a different way of living, a different way of how to be in harmony with people, right? People of diverse views and ideas. A place where people can heal from the wounds of growing up in a toxic society, right? if there aren't these kind of places for people, right, these communities, these whatevers, then how are things ever going to change? You see, that's a dilemma. I mean, we can change our political leaders every, what, 2 years? Right? I mean, we have different elections, but every 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, we can keep changing them. But does that really significantly change things? You see? What's the big picture? And so if we see the big picture and we want the big picture to change, we know that the answer lies in changing human beings, the way they think, the way they act and interrelate. And then how do you do that? Well, you have to create opportunities for a different kind of learning to go on. A different kind of education, where people learn how to be what? Kind and ethical and compassionate and patient and nonviolent and what else? And deal with their anger and how to develop self-control and how to lead a moral life and how to be honest and straight ahead and how to sacrifice for others. And I mean, where are you going to learn that? Right? So that is the role. I'm not just saying Buddhism, I'm just saying hopefully there are lots of isms out there and lots of non-isms out there, right? That are nurturing, helping people learn another way to be in this world, right? Another set of values. So you can recognize when somebody shows up in the social political realm who's speaking that language. And when they're speaking the language of what? What do we hear every day? Anger, separation. You're bad, I'm good. I mean, when you hear that kind of language, you know this is not going to produce anything new, is it? Same old, same old. So let's open this up. We got a few minutes. Yes, but now we just there. How many people do we have online tonight, Brian?
At the moment, we have 98.
98 people. And anybody can chat in to you, Brian. Yes, ma'am.
Yesterday, well, this week, I bought my shirt.
You what?
I bought my shirt, my bright yellow shirt that I was going to wear to a demonstration. I had signed up, took the picture, sent it to my 4 grandchildren.
And the shirt said what?
The shirt said, "No kings in America."
No kings in
It was
America.
beautiful yellow flowers.
So you're one of those.
And I told them where I was going to be.
Uh-huh.
And they spanned the age from 27 to 18.
Mm-hmm.
One in college at Ole Miss, another one in New York trying to be an actor, 2 of them here in Tampa working.
Uh-huh.
They all replied back to me, "Stay home. Don't go. We love you." I was very happy that they, were saying that they were concerned for me. But it was very sad
Oh,
to me.
they were telling you not to go, but they thought it'd be dangerous for you
Yes.
to go. Uh-huh.
They all said, "It's not worth it. Don't go, Grandma. We love you."
Interesting.
And they were not together. One was here, one was there, but they all came together with the same notion. And it's sad to me to think that they're so frightened. That they were proud of me, and but they were frightened for me to get hurt. And so in this climate of fear, it's upsetting to me that that's how they're being not raised, because I don't want to raise them that way, but
But these are
it
the
is
cultural,
fearful.
but again, and how they're getting it through news. I just looked at the papers early today. They said there were millions of people came out and there was nothing at all, right? Peaceful. So, see, that's the truth. That's the truth. And again, I think we have to understand that, Ty has a line in one of the trainings where he says, truth is only found in life, not in thoughts about life. And people have lots of, like your grandchildren, thoughts about life, but where do they get them from? The media. They didn't go down to the demonstration and say, ooh, you better be careful. So, yeah, we have to, I think it behooves us to learn to think for ourselves. But you can see the forces. Yeah, so it's not just political, it's also media also is these are, I think these times call for, people to find ways to stay grounded in reality, right? Which is, as you know, that's why we began today, right? Grounded in reality. Yeah. So anyhow, they love you and they don't want to. So anyhow, you showed them that we still live in a democracy and people can still exercise their right to assemble, and these are constitutional rights, and don't be afraid. One of the in the Buddhist teachings on generosity, the most best thing to give is fearlessness. Interesting. First is to give all kinds of material gifts, needs, food, shelter, to people to take care of their needs. That's generosity. Second, generosity is to give them the Dharma, the teachings that has the capacity to free them from their suffering. And the third act of generosity is fearlessness. Don't be afraid. All will be well. Yeah, we can get through this. Right? It's a great gift. So please give them to your grandchildren. Thank you. Yeah, good. Who else?
Fred, we have a question online.
Yes.
Justin asks, Hi, good morning.
Hi.
How do I deal with family and friends who do support toxic leaders? I love them, but it is hard to have quality relationships when they have those beliefs.
Well, again, we're all dealing with our own situations. We're talking a lot about people's ideas, their views, right? That's one thing. Are people allowed to have different views? Okay. Right? Can people have right-leaning views and left-leaning views? Yeah. We live in a democracy, right? So that's not the problem, right? The problem is, are we tolerant, accepting, and understanding of people with different views? Like we have, in our community, we have, 300 and something members and lots of hundreds of people who come up. I have no idea what anybody's views are. I have no idea what anybody's political views are, social views are. Right? Anybody question you at the door, for those of you who aren't members? Yeah. Because it doesn't matter, does it? Because we're all here to share our humanness and learn very basic human things. We don't let people's views and ideas and identifications get in the way. We don't make that a criteria because we want to get to know each other as human beings. In that we're all the same. I have family members who have different views than I do. That's fine. But, there are ways of dealing with it. There are certain ones we just agreed not to go. I love them. I grew up with them. Right? I love them. And we've had, it's like, when we're together, I'm not interested in your views. Because there's certain people, they don't want to discuss views. They want to just tell you what their views are. And so to me, that's not a conversation. They're just, it's like, nothing's going to change, right? I mean, we know each other's views. So, let's talk about the things that nurture our relationship. And there are lots of things that nurture our relationship because we're human and we have, we're just human beings. There's lots going on. So I think acceptance of people with other views, if there's a capacity to question, to me, if somebody has a different view from me, I'm interested to know, how'd you come up with that view? You see, curiosity. Isn't that interesting? We're looking at the same thing. I view it this way, and you view it that way. See, that's interesting. So I think curiosity and asking questions and being open is one way to create relationship, with people. Right? Rather than going, uh-oh, you have your view. See, that's the problem. Oh, you're one of those. No. We're not in the same human family. We're not even now anymore in our own little families because I think we're letting these views, they're just views. Right? So again, I think openness, curiosity, not believing you have the truth are all the way to deal with these family members. And if you have, again, like I said, certain family members, I have other family members, I love them very much. They love to share their views with me. So you know what I do? The first 30 minutes we're together, I said, okay, this is your 30 minutes. I will just listen. And after that, it's done for the whole visit. Do you know what I mean? There are some people, they're on the media a lot, you know what I mean? They're just fired up, So, so I give them their 30 minutes. Get it all out. Okay, now let's move on and have a good time together. You can still have a good time with them, can't you? I mean, there's some that I've run into, and I know from other family members, who are really destroyed by what's going on. That's sad. You know what I mean? Just like cannot get their mind off it, right? And that makes it very difficult to be, they can't even control themselves, right? So at that point, you got to decide how much you can be around them, right? But I don't know. Does that answer your question, Justin? Anything else?
Justin said yes, thank you.
Thank you. It's a good talk today. Not that it's not always a good talk, but today's good.
All right.
I am thinking about this just culture and business that we are working towards bringing our authentic self to work. And I would like very much...
Hold on. That's an idea you have, or that's the culture you're in?
It's a culture in a lot of businesses where...
They want you to bring your authentic self.
Your authentic self to work.
Uh-huh.
And I find that it's sometimes a conflict to hearing you talk about this professional role.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to hear you talk just a little bit more about that, because I feel like the line there is a little fuzzy.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm coming to you in this role, obviously, I don't know, I don't want to be a fake person, but...
Oh, I see. Yeah, so I don't know when your corporate business tells you to bring your authentic self. I mean, if you're kind of lazy and sloppy. I mean, is that what they mean?
No, I think it has to do with a positive spin on diversity, where instead of coming in and just going with whatever you think everyone else wants to hear, that you come in and bring a part of who you are. And, but some of who other people are is a little dark sometimes. And so maybe this isn't something that you've really thought about in the past and, combine those together, but
No, I get
you
what
have a
you're-
quick mind, so I figured
Oh, thank you.
could throw it at you.
So cultivating a professional self can sound very artificial. It's like you're just playing a role. No, it's more nuanced than that. So, I'm still me. I have my own personality, my own way, you know what I mean? I bring all those qualities. It's not like you don't bring your qualities with you, and your qualities are different than his qualities and that qualities and your background, you know what I mean? So that's your humaneness. But it means, so you go to work as what? What's your role?
I'm an IT director.
You're an IT director. So, that's your role, right? And you're there to carry on your duties as the IT director. That's your role, right? You're not there to teach French cooking, right? You're not there, you see what I'm saying? There's like, you know what I mean? And there may be boundaries about your relationships with your colleagues or people you work with. You know what I mean, within the corporate, you know what I mean? So there are boundaries which you may not have out in the street, out in the culture. So we can take on roles, but we still know who we are. And how much of who we are and we express, there has to be discernment. Just like you said. You can't just let it all hang out. Can you?
I disagree with some of the things that are.
Yeah, I don't know what goes on, but I'm saying, it's just like in society. If you want harmony, like we just had a refresher meeting for people that were in the relationship workshop 6 weeks ago. We had a refresher thing on Saturday morning. Yeah, I'm a great proponent of duct tape therapy. It's like sometimes you may think it, don't say it. It's not to repress. It's just like, is this going to create harmony? Is this the right time? Is this, you know what I mean? So, self-control, which was one of the virtues here, is important. And self-control in different circumstances, different environment, could mean different things, right? But even in, I don't. Is that getting at what you're asking? But I'm not exactly sure what you're. What's going on there with
wanted
this,
to kind of hear your thoughts there. So thank you for sharing.
Does that speak to what you're? See, I don't know what it means to
Yeah,
bring your authentic
I
self to work.
Yeah, I think it's still just kind of a fuzzy idea in my mind. And then listening here about that role of professionalism, and then also, you've got these traits of a ruler, and sometimes to live these traits means that you are compassionate, and even though you do think that all the purple people are stupid, maybe you don't say that. Well, I'm just being authentic, but.
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right, and that's, I think, what we're talking about here, that when you're the ruler or when you're the supervisor, you have a role to play within the whole, right? And you want to nurture the whole. You want to bring so you may have in your mind, if you were out there, you may not want to socialize with this person. Could that be true? Mm-hmm. But yet, you don't let those thoughts intrude at work because you're dealing with them. So that's what I mean. You play a role because it facilitates the health of the team.
Of the team. Mm-hmm.
You see, the health of the team. So it's a balance, I mean, can we be authentic and just say whatever we want all the time and let everybody know what we really think of them and, and act out in any way I want? I mean, what does that sound like?
Chaos.
What? Chaos? Anything else? Yeah, it's just I mean, it's God, if everybody was selfing themselves and putting it out there, well, you might end up with like the world we have today. Right? People are just, I don't care what anybody else thinks. Right? I mean, it's selfish. Yeah, yeah, so it's a balance. Yeah, I mean, but again, you can be you no matter where you are. Right? Kindness, caring, self-restraint, honest, you know what I mean? I mean, those are the qualities that you can be wherever you are. How you apply them in different situations has to do with different situations, right? How you are at home with your family and how you live them at work. It's a different context, it's not, right? But you can always be authentically you. But sometimes you got to keep her a little under wraps, right? For playing this role. We play roles in life. And we have to acknowledge we play roles. I mean, you, as a supervisor in the IT, whatever it is, you're playing a role. And your job is to what? Facilitate your team. Right? If you were just a team member, you could just whine and complain about the team leader all the time, right? But you can't anymore, right? Because you're the leader. Oh, we should stop. Thank you, everybody. I know it's a little different today, but I felt in honor of, I was struck by the idea of kings and the Buddha's teaching on kings. Thank you, everyone. Please stay for tea. Tea is outdoors.